Senator Will Castro. Good morning, Senator.
Hey, good morning. How's it going, Chris and Sabina? Half a day. Good morning, Dr. Underwood. I could still see you half a day.
So how are you feeling, Senator Castro?
I'm a lot better. I think I'm about maybe 95%. I'm not quite clear from self-isolation, so I put my own props here in the room, hopefully to remind your listenership and viewing audience that I'm still a viable candidate. I didn't suspend the campaign in terms of my candidacy, but going full force to the best of my ability.
All right, Senator. So, I know that you've been thinking about this bid for DC for a while. Just, I guess, what really cemented your decision to throw your hat in the ring in the delegate race?
It's a combination of things, Chris. First of all, I put myself forward because I think there's definitely a stark contrast between myself and the incumbent in terms of leadership style. In addition to that, I think you can see in both his performance as a sitting delegate and in terms of my policy posture, there's no ambiguity in terms of where we stand and how we differ from a public policy perspective. And frankly, I just felt the third and probably more selfish perspective, and I forgive me for this, but I just felt that Guam could be better represented abroad in terms of reaching out and building bridges with stakeholders, whether they're in the federal government or working with our governor or working with the legislature. Those are the three compelling reasons that got me to run, to not seek a third term as one of your senators.
So tell me again more about this better represented. How would you better represent the people of Guam if elected?
Well, I think COVID has highlighted, has even accentuated the reality for me and perhaps the community that I think now more than ever, we're 6 months into COVID and there's no clear end in sight. I think your next representative, regardless of who that's going to be, should be somebody who's dynamic, who's innovative, capable of coming up with solutions that is not the traditional path, someone who's capable, based on a proven record of remaining active and engaged in those discussions. This is the one position that's stationed out there that has the opportunity to knock on doors in both the House and the Senate, but also to power network with the administration, our partners in the federal government. That requires a lot of hustle. And I think this is something I've demonstrated clearly in my first and second term, is the ability to be accessible to our constituency. I'm a firm believer that you can't attempt to represent and take action on behalf of the polity if you're not there to engage with them and to absorb and listen in on what some of the concerns are. I don't think you can adequately represent your people if you're not among them to hear some of their plights. And that's an important component of leadership and representative democracy, in my opinion. So I bring those three things. And I think the fourth one, I'm not saying none of these other candidates have this component, but I think it's an important one. It's the ability to conduct yourself in a manner that's consistent with our Pacific way of life, having respect. I think the people of Guam need someone out there who they can be proud to have as a representative to say, that's my delegate. And I trust that he or she can be that person to represent us well and help find solutions and represent us, put our best face forward as a Pacific community.
Senator, so you know what, with you being unchallenged in the primary, it's kind of been Robert and Maggette just going at each other while you're over on the side, kind of like. What do you make of that? Just the campaign between those two gentlemen?
Not my preferred cup of tea in terms of drawing distinctions. But that's hey, to each their own. For me, I've always made it a point to be a grassroots campaigner. We haven't stopped. We started as early as January. We made a commitment to put out 1,000 yard signs. I think my financial records will represent today what it represented maybe in my first term, that we've never really relied on the generous contributions of the chamber or a particular segment of this community. As a matter of fact, we make it a point to go into every village and touch as many hands as possible and talk to as many people as possible. And so My campaign and my team, we were diligent in a hardcore grassroots campaign. Our first motorcade was through the South, just to signal that we're serious about representing all people from throughout the territory. Unfortunately, PCOR 1 set us back significantly. I heard the previous speaker talk about a wave. We have waves lined up. The Republican Party has waves lined up, and that's great. We also had a large motorcade scheduled for Jigo to assist our Republican contenders in the village of Jigo who are running for mayor. Obviously, out of respect, we decided not to do that, even when we start to see a spike in the cases of COVID in the community. So it's altered our strategy somewhat, but I think hopefully on or before August 29th, we have a solution on how to handle the primary election. I still think we should move forward with it, whether we delay it or find an alternative measure, whether it's by convention. But I think we need to allow the parties to determine for themselves who their standard bearer is going to be, so we can have a fair exchange of ideas, their best candidate versus the Republican challenger, myself.
Senator, does your campaign change at all depending on who you're going to face in the general?
I think it does. Without going below the belt, I think it does. The former congressman brings a tremendous amount of skills to the table. We all have our weaknesses. I'm sure they're going to highlight mine, but I think so. The strategy is going to change if it's the incumbent, Mr. St. Nicholas, in terms of character, in terms of the ability to put in the hustle, those types of things, in terms of even, again, like I said, the public policy agenda. I mean, we can, after the 29th or whenever the Democrats put forward their challenge, I'd be happy to share some of those contrasting points from a public policy perspective, like amending the Organic Act from Congress as opposed to seeking the consent of the legislature and the governor in terms of modifying the Organic Act. Whether it's for $25 million bond initiative, which is what the congressman was proposing, or lockboxing monies that come in for purposes of paying tax returns. I don't disagree with those initiatives in terms of the principle, but where we differ starkly is I'm not going to run to Uncle Sam or the powers of Congress to exact upon our domestic affairs what we can be doing for ourselves. That's democracy. And every time you chip away at our ability to be self-governing, that's a very, very, very important statement that I don't think we should be making as a polity. I think we should be moving in the opposite direction. Wow. Greater self-governance and opportunities to make decisions for ourselves so we can determine what the economic path to prosperity is going to be for all of us.
Good points. Let me ask you this. A lot of people are talking about the negative campaigning. In your opinion, is it negative campaigning when you talk about negative things that may be on your opponent's record that are part of his or hers professional, record, right? I mean, for example, if you don't show up to vote or if you're under investigation or, whatever the situation may be from candidate to candidate.
Listen, based on everything I've seen, you can call it negative campaigning. I just see it as one campaign strategy to highlight the deficiencies of the incumbent. That's fair game. I never heard any personal attacks upon the character of the individual in terms of making value judgments as a person. I heard the record was raised in terms of attendance, voting attendance. I can even contrast some of that as well in terms of when the bulk of the initiatives were introduced in the Congress. I mean, whenever you lay out the facts, that's fair game. Now, when you start talking about things, that are more along the lines of the household or your philosophical religious beliefs, those might be off the table for me as well. But based on what I've seen, that's fair game. That we have the right to question each other's performance in our elected capacities. We even have the right to challenge each other's ability to meet certain obligations as members of this community. So you can make a decision that, the best possible decision that I want that young, dynamic representative, because I know he's going to reach into it. He's proven this time and time again. How can I claim to be active and engaged if I was never there? If you never saw me on the side of the road, or I never made constituents visits to their homes and the jungles of the bays? How can I claim to build strong regional partnerships if I don't have evidence that demonstrates in at least 18 to 22 times I've met with regional leaders on issues of mutual concern and interest to bring us that much closer to strengthen, for example, our homeland security posture? You see, those things have to be brought to the table, and it's perfectly above board to say, no, you haven't done anything to that effect. It's one thing to say that, it's another to claim it and support it. And so I'm ready to have that debate on my record. I'm ready to have the debate on my claim that I believe that I've introduced certain things throughout my professional career that are innovative and outside of the box. I'm ready to defend my record that I've demonstrated my ability to work with people on both sides of the aisle. I've demonstrated the ability when something has been compelling enough to stand up and rise and fight and speak in the vernacular or in English to express my point and represent the sentiments of our Chamorro community as well. So those things are fair game, and I look forward to that's healthy discussion, and that's something that costs us nothing, Chris. And that's what I'm relying upon. If you look at the federal financial reports that were filed, you're going to see again a stark contrast between fundraising efforts between all three candidates. And this is the forum that's neutral, that I can appreciate, that gets people to listen in for free and make an informed decision about where we stand on the economy, where we stand on veterans affairs, where we stand on self-governance and Chamorro political self-determination, and where we stand in our ability to sit out there and chip away until the job is done.
Mm-hmm. You talked about the primary election briefly earlier in this conversation. So if the primary election is canceled, do you plan on filing any sort of legal challenge, or would you?
I reserve comment about my personal suit if I plan to bring a suit against the election commission or anybody. But just as a matter of principle, I don't think it's proper. I don't think it's right that we cancel the election. First of all, over 2,000 votes have been cast in advance, to include my own. Second, we're so far into this that social contract, if you will, has been set into motion. And you're going to hear a lot more on Thursday on the floor when we debate the measure introduced by the speaker. And I'm going to make a case that we should proceed however modality you choose, whether it's a closed party selection of the standard bearer or their candidates in each camp, whether it's mayor, vice mayor, or in this case, delegate on the Democrat side, or whether you do mail-in votings or whether you postpone it. But to outright throw out the primary election and the voices of 2,200 people who, for different reasons, took it upon themselves to vote in advance is a travesty of our democracy. I don't support it. I did talk with Senator Joe San Agustin, and we are going to collaborate on a measure that does away with the primary for 2022 in terms of allowing the parties to make that selection however way they deem fit, as they determine most suitable for their membership. But to do it now, we have a man on third, we have a batter up, it's only one out, we're ahead, and all of a sudden we're going to call the game for whatever reason. I don't understand. It just doesn't make sense to me.
If elected, what committees would you hope to be a part of or be on?
Sure. I've gone on record to say that I would fall in line with what's proven to deliver the most results and to petition to serve on the Armed Services Committee, naturally the Natural Resources Committee, and I would even venture out to see if we can get on the Veterans Affairs Committee. I mean, those things are suitable to the natural industries that are here as a result of the relationship we have with the United States and the kind of activities in the region. So for me, that would be a no-brainer. I don't think I would break too far from the paradigm in terms of seeking membership to those standing committees.
Okay.
All right, Senator, we have a minute and a half left. We'll go ahead and give you the floor for your closing statement. Republican candidate for Congress, Senator Will Castro.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I made a decision to put myself forward and hopefully give the people an alternative to the incumbent. As time progresses and you hear each of our positions on the policy planks that we adopt for ourselves, I'm hoping that I'm not just a viable, but probably the most opportunistic candidate that we can put out there for the long haul, a good long-term investment who you can be proud to represent you well, who has a proven record of remaining active and engaged, someone who's capable of engaging in a dynamic way, who's capable of building bridges with regional jurisdictions, who's capable of maintaining those relationships with the head of the government here, both in the House and also with the governor of Guam, regardless of partisan affiliation. Someone who's proven their ability to get out there and knock on doors and meet with people to identify solutions. I'd like to put my record on the table for closer examination in hopes that I can convince you that I'm that candidate, not just now in these COVID times, but for the intermediate and long-term prosperity of the region. I'm willing to put in the time and effort and put my best foot forward to serving you well, the people of Guam. God bless you. Thank you so much. Guahu si William Castro. Malala Gazupa Delegado, si Masik para todos. Hamzu, God bless you. Be safe during these COVID times. Please take care of our Manamko and those with underlying health conditions. Viva Guahan, Viva Marianas.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Senator.
Thank you.
And break a leg tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yeah, and
Thank you so
drink
much.
water, wash your hands. Okay.
The Guam Chamber of Commerce is having a congressional forum actually